On 21st of July 2025, the Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar ji, has resigned from the post, has submitted resignation letter to the Honorable President of India. Now, he declared his intention to prioritize his healthcare and abide by the medical advice with immediate effect, citing Article 67, Section A of the Constitution of India. Now, his decision to step down, citing health concerns, has only been the third time while in independent India, a vice president has resigned mid-term. The first time it was done was by V.V. Giri in the year 1969, and then in the year 1987 by R. Venkat Raman. Now, the question which is in people's mind is that who is going to succeed the Vice President of India and who is going to become the next Vice President of India, and what happens when Vice President of India resigns mid-term. So what is the office all about? What are the constitutional provisions surrounding it? What is the eligibility? What are the powers? What are the rules, responsibilities and duties of Vice President of India, and who will take place and discharge the duties of Vice President of India if Vice President resigns mid-term? All these questions we'll be trying to answer in this particular session. Hello, my name is Preetpal Singh and you're watching Perspective. Now, without beating around the bush, let us answer this question: that what now? After Vice President of India has resigned mid-term with immediate effect, what will happen now? See, according to our constitution, Vice President holds office for a span of 5 years. And according to Article 67, Section A of the Constitution, the Vice President may resign from the office by writing to the President of India. Now, unlike the vacancy in the office of a president, the Constitution does not envisage any provision of automatic succession for Vice President, which means that in case of a president's resignation or death, the Constitution has a provision where Vice President would become the acting president. But there is no such provision of automatic succession for Vice President in our Indian Constitution. But there is Article 65. Now, Article 65 of Indian Constitution says that if the office of Vice President is vacant, the Vice President's duties as Chairman of Rajya Sabha will be discharged by the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha till the time a new Vice President is elected. Also, this ensures that the functioning of the upper house of the Parliament, that is Rajya Sabha, is not disrupted at all. So now, since it is very clear in our minds that there is no such constitutional provision for automatic succession of Vice President in India, now the question is that who will become the next Vice President? Now, whoever the government might choose through election, of course, election would be held and new Vice President would be chosen as soon as possible by the Government of India. And as you would know, that which is the authority who conducts the election for the Vice President? It is Election Commission of India. So it's not actually the Government of India, it is the Election Commission of India who is going to foresee that Vice President's elections takes place as soon as possible. Now, since we have talked about who is going to be the next Vice President, now let us talk about the office of Vice President in general and also in a very detailed way. See, the office of Vice President is the second highest constitutional office after the President of India. Also, it ranks as second in the order of precedence and first in the line of succession to the President. Also, alongside this, Vice President of India, since they discharge dual responsibilities, they are also the ex officio chairperson of Rajya Sabha, which means they are in this capacity with the powers and functions similar to the Lok Sabha Speaker in Lok Sabha. Also, they serve for a period of 5 long years and also they are eligible for re-election in the particular office. Also, one very integral role played by the Vice President is that if the President of India, the Honorable President of India, is unable to discharge his or her duties due to absence, illness or any other cause, the Vice President becomes the acting President of the country. And this arrangement continues till the time new President is elected, which may occur within 6 months if the vacancy arises due to President's death or resignation or removal. And also during this period, when Vice President is performing the role of acting President and becomes the President of India, they would cease to perform the functions of Chairperson of Rajya Sabha. So all the functions of the Chairperson of Rajya Sabha, the Vice President would cease to perform when they become the acting President in time of President's actual absence or illness or death or resignation or removal. Now, Article 63 of Indian Constitution very clearly says that there shall be Vice President of India. The office of Vice President of India was established with the framework of Indian Constitution in the year 1950. Now, it reflected the framers' intent to create institutional continuity and also effective parliamentary governance. And if you have to see the functioning of vice president, it encompasses two parts. One is legislative function, another is executive function. Now, primarily, they are serving as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, which means they have to ensure smooth legislative proceedings and maintain parliamentary decorum in Rajya Sabha. Also, this role requires neutrality, which means vice president, they possess a casting vote when the voting is tied between the two parties and when there is a tied situation. But the vice president cannot participate in regular voting in Rajya Sabha, as he or she is not a elected member of the House. But on the other hand, Article 65 itself outlines the executive function of vice president as well, when they would perform contingent executive function, serving as the president during the vacancy, which already we have discussed, caused by death, caused by resignation, removal, or illness of president, in whatever the case might be. The first vice president of independent India who took oath at the Rashtrapati Bhavan on May 13th, 1952 was the Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, again a very prominent political figure at that era. Other than that, Shri Zakir Hussain ji, Shri V.V. Gire ji, Shri Muhammad Haditullah, Shri Shankar Dayal Sharma ji, Shri K.R. Narayanan ji, Shri Bhairav Singh Shekhawat ji, Shri Muhammad Hamid Ansari, Shri Venkaiah Naidu ji are some of the prominent figures or popular known vice president which India has had so far. Now, there are two questions. One is in relation to eligibility and one is in relation to election of vice president of India, how they are elected. Now, if we talk about eligibility, Article 66, Section 4 clearly highlights that a vice presidential candidate must be of 35 years of age. That is one thing. Now, Article 84, it requires the candidates meeting all the qualifications applicable to Rajya Sabha membership. So, a person who is eligible to become a Rajya Sabha member is also eligible to contest for the office of the Vice President of India. Also, one more eligibility is that the candidate must not hold any office of profit or should not be disqualified under Article 102 of Indian Constitution. If all these eligibilities are met, a person or individual can contest as being the Vice President of India. Now, the second question is process of election. Who conducts the election of the Vice President? It is the Election Commission of India. And the process of election is mentioned in the Article 66 of the Indian Constitution. It mandates indirect election. So, which means election of Vice President does take place, but the election is indirect, which means public is not directly involved in the elections. And the election happens in both of the houses of the parliament through the system of proportional representation and through a single transferable vote with a single ballot. Now, the election of the vice president happens through the proportional representation system, also with a single transferable vote, and a secret ballot is existing. So, there is an electoral college who votes in the election of Vice President of India. And that electoral college is formed of elected and nominated both MPs of both the House of Parliament, that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. However, state legislatures are excluded in choosing the Vice President of India. That Election Commission of India conducts the presidential and vice presidential elections in our country according to the Presidential and Vice Presidential Elections Act of 1952. And then there is Article 71, which vests the Honorable Supreme Court of India of jurisdiction over the Vice President's elections, which means any dispute in relation to Vice President election takes place, it is the duty of Honorable Supreme Court of India to take that into cognizance. Now, since we have discussed in detail about the Vice President of India, one last thing which we have to understand is that in what all cases the position or the office of Vice President of India can remain vacant or becomes vacant. The first is after completing the 5-year term. Now, after the completion of the 5-year term, of course, the office would fall vacant until the time the new vice president is elected. The earlier vice president takes the course or takes the position. Other than that, the second reason can be voluntary resignation, which just happened. It can be due to any of the reasons, personal reasons, health reasons, any concerns. But the second is voluntary resignation. Now, the third one is removal through a formal process. Fourth one is if a vice president dies in an office, then the seat falls vacant. And the fifth one is that if the election is declared as invalid by the Honorable Supreme Court of India. So in all these 5 cases, the office of Vice President of India might fall vacant. But then many students have concern about the impeachment of Vice President of India. See, there is no provision for impeachment of Vice President. There is a provision for impeachment of the Honorable Supreme Court judges or High Court judges, but there is no such provision for the Vice President of India. There is no formal impeachment process in the Constitution of India for his or her removal. Instead, he or she can be removed by a single resolution passed by the majority in the Rajya Sabha and agreed to by the Lok Sabha. So if majority of the people in Rajya Sabha decide and they pass a resolution in a simple majority to impeach the vice president, they can do so. And eventually, the Lok Sabha has to agree with it. Now, coming to the salary provision, there is no salary provision for the vice president of India. Of course, there is a salary provision for the deputy speaker of Rajya Sabha, and which is why the vice president receives a salary and allowances with respect to the chairman of the Rajya Sabha rather than being the vice president. and the salary has been revised to 4 lakh rupees. That is $4,700. Again, revised from 1,25,000 in the year 2018. Now, since we have understood a lot many provisions, constitutional, a lot many functions of the Vice President of India, one thing which is very peculiar and important is that Vice President of India holds a very unique position in country's constitutional framework and political history as well. Now, they serve as the legislative presiding officers also, and while executive successor, ensuring continuity in institutions of our country, whether it be Rajya Sabha, whether it be the office of President of India. Also, one thing which is very clear is that to understand this institution, you have to understand and carefully see its dual nature, which is rooted in parliamentary democracy tradition and yet adapted by India's unique federal structure. So overall, I would conclude by saying this, that Deputy Speaker of India is definitely a cornerstone for India's parliamentary governance. So I would summarize by stating this line, that Office of Vice President of India is definitely serving as a cornerstone for effective democratic governance in the country. And for that, an individual who is enthusiastic, an individual who is much more motivated, needs to be the Vice President of India, so that proactive measures can be taken at a country level, at a nationwide level. I hope you gained a new perspective from the session. All the very best. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.